I believe in an old proverb that says, if you want to, have prosperity for a year, then, grow some grain. If you want to have prosperity for 10 years, then grow a tree. But if you want to have prosperity for 100 years, you got to grow people. And so if you're not growing people in your organization, then you're a solopreneur. You have a job. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't complain about it if you're not growing something bigger than yourself.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Middleton Methods podcast. This week, we have another interview for you. I am joined with Vinnie Fisher, husband, father, serial entrepreneur, a genius marketer for sure. The hooks and the way that your marketing mind thinks, you wouldn't think that would come from a lawyer, accountant kind of background, right? You're the author of the book, The CEO Mindset, founder of Fully Accountable, which is an amazing service that you guys provide. You have total team. So you're just all around a very seasoned entrepreneur and family man. And so we're very excited. It's a treat to have you here with our audience this week. And one thing I really appreciate.
I really appreciate you. And you and your wife are awesome. So I feel honored and privileged to be here today. So thanks for having me.
The privilege is ours. One thing I've appreciated about you since literally the day that I met you at Traffic and Conversion Summit in San Diego is in the business world, sometimes people can have like a wall up or have their representative, right? And didn't know you. And within the first few minutes, I could tell you're a genuine person, kind of wear your heart on your sleeve, just an awesome human being. So I appreciate you, man. And as we've gotten to know each other through years.
Oh, hey, I'm doing good. Like somebody's saying something nice about me today. This is awesome. I should stay on the show longer. This is great. So thanks for that. So
just so people understand, like what at the Total CEO Mastermind, which I had the privilege of being a guest at, you had talked about the different businesses. You've had more businesses than I just mentioned, right? Can you give us a background real quick? Did I leave anything out?
Yeah, sure. I've had the privilege of now having 4 8-figure businesses. I started my, I'm a lawyer, right? I've been one for 17 years, and we had a law firm that was big and robust. And I had a major partnership breakdown with me and my managing partner of the firm, and that business was already approaching, I think we had just cracked the 10 million mark, and we were doing great. A whole bunch of staff running around. We broke up. That whole thing led me into a direction while I had that law firm where I partnered up with a young guy, a millennial in the
hold it against us.
And my first introduction into the digital world was with a client who I was helping do some business planning and how to deal with team and development. And gosh, this was back in 2006. And this was when like electronic books weren't even called ebooks, or they were still PDF download, right? And I remember him saying to me, a URL, a domain. I'm like, what's that? That's how much I didn't know about the internet. Now, fast forward, I've owned BrainHost, which we grew to $50 million. I owned freewebsite.com. I owned a pretty cool health supplement brand called Consumer's Choice, which then flipped later and sold into Leading Health. We now own Fully Accountable, a full outsourced accounting solution, which you referenced earlier, and an HR company called Total Team, where we provide an entire solution and service for hiring, training, and retaining A players. And then, we run a mastermind, which is not easy, and it takes work, and it's real, and it's the basis of really the whole fundamental part of what I believe in, which is it's people over process, right? So it's always team. There are so many people who want to automate and make things about process, and we remove the most essential part. Grow anything bigger than you better have, people you're developing. And I believe in an old proverb that says, if you want to, have prosperity for a year, then, grow some grain. If you want to have prosperity for 10 years, then grow a tree. But if you want to have prosperity for 100 years, you got to grow people. And so if you're not growing people in your organization, then you're a solopreneur. You have a job. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't complain about it if you're not growing something bigger than yourself. And so that's a resume about me. I'll always talk about team. The joke is we call me the cult leader, right? Because I'm always building a cult. I believe in culture. And so, my entire book, this book you referenced, talks about that all the time. And it's all about people. So I'm thankful that I can be the ambassador of our brands. And I have 2 CEOs that run our brands full time. And that's not me. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about to get into some of that, because in our business, it's, myself and Sam, and then we've had just a few employees, and we've been able to do a decent, 7-figure business, but that's not, it's still very much in some ways being self-employed. And we got lucky with a few team members early on, but every time, trying to grow that and scale that has not been easy. So I'm excited to kind of dig into.
I'd like to say for your audience that Brandon, and for you and Sam, that a higher service or higher level professional service like your agency and stuff, $250,000 to $500,000 of revenue per person on the team is very reasonable. And to think of 4 people on your team with $250,000 to $500,000 in revenue, you're a $1 to $2 million company, and it's still very much focused on the founders as operators. So, you just start the journey at 7 figures with a higher level service business, unwrapping yourself and dealing with those complexities. So there's probably a whole bunch of your audience and even mine who need to hear about that's where the journey starts of developing team. And, unfortunately, you got this kind of, what's the friction? You got this friction. You're the most profitable when you don't have more people, but you're also the most stuck of the company, right?
That's exactly right. Well, look, before we get into that, I did want to start with a little bit of fun. Sam and I have this segment that we do called the Middleton Madness, where we usually just share something about the weekend. In this stage of our life, it's usually something around the kids, whether Max is swallowing a quarter or, think crazy things happening. But is there any Fisher madness this week, or any kind of lighthearted, eventful things this week, being that you have, like the teenage years and so on?
Yes, I have 4 kids, and my youngest is 10. My oldest is 16. So we're really, because the youngest does what everyone else does, we're really raising 4 teenagers right now. So we're in madness. This weekend we've been dealing with basketball tryouts, sweating out, making see if the 2 boys make basketball. And then the funny part is my daughter, my oldest, is doing swimming. And so apparently as long as you float, you make the swimming team. And so I think the hardest thing for us is we're helping a 16-year-old navigate the concept of dating. And I'm extremely thankful to be on that wall. And I have someone who's willing to be talking to me. And that conversation's real. Like when you're talking about boys and sex and all the fun, I'll keep this PG, but all the things that come along with that discussion. And I'm actually, quite honestly, wasn't raised in that kind of family. So the humor of conversation of Sunday night around like, am I actually talking about this with my daughter right now? Is hilarious to me. And so that was probably the funniest part, and still is, of the weekend.
Is that a tip to have those conversations with humor? Are they very serious but lighthearted at the same time? Because I don't know if I can either control my emotions just thinking about Peyton, 12 years from now, and those conversations gives me sweats.
Well, at your age of kids, Bud, I was the same place. And I'll just do this illustration. And for the ones listening, think of a fist, right? And the tighter your squeeze. When we're younger parents, we have this delusion to believe we can force our kids to do what we want them to do. Like grab their head, turn around, shove them in bed. Right. Well, as they get older, you start to realize you can't force anyone to do anything. You can help them make choices. And the more that I practice letting go of the grip with my daughter or daughters, because the boys are going to be what the boys are going to be. I still want to punch them half the time. But so if I practice loosening that grip and realize it's her journey, not mine, then I need to have some fun with where she's at, not where I want her to be. And I think the more I can run that through my head, and the more I can practice that, I'm a better leader for her. When I want it to go my way, we tend to have all that friction stuff. We have all that kind of hurt feelings, and she shuts down. So I'd encourage every parent to do your best to everything short of drugs and alcohol to try to realize this is their journey, not yours.
Awesome. Cool.
Hard, man. I just gave you like wisdom stuff, like Moses level. It's stuff I have to daily grind through, right?
Yeah, I get it. So I'm curious, you see a lot of businesses, a lot, you see the business, right? Being in the, with Fully Accountable, you have a similar perspective as I had when we come in and do a lot of marketing for companies. We see the real numbers, not the vanity stats. We see the challenges and what's working and what's not working. I'm curious, what do you see that is one of the biggest challenges that business owners face?
The number one thing I'm focusing on right now is, I think, the number one problem. We don't know who we're talking to. We don't know our audience. We don't continue to do the real homework of who our best customer is. We kind of have a guess.
Mm-hmm.
We don't continue to build that profile of the perfect persona, that profile of the audience. And because of that, our leaky bucket is towards channels of marketing and towards ways to attract people to work with us. And it's the most expensive lead. And that could come in the form of marketing, hiring people. That destructive bucket, leads to it's the number one reason small businesses fail. It leads to 42% of the time businesses not making it to the 10th year in business. Do you know that 96% of companies don't make it to the 10th year? And almost half of the time is because they're trying to position an offer for the wrong audience. And that is such a destructive thing. Or they could be with the right audience, but with the wrong offer. But most of the time, when I'm looking under the hood, and I don't care if it's on our team side of our business or Fully Accountable, we are seeing an amazing toilet bowl marketing effect where everyone's just shotgunning, and they've kind of assumed that the audience is figured out. And we say it, I don't see anybody doing it. We see things talked about avatar, we see things talked about, but I don't see any business regularly practicing getting rid of the bottom pieces, doing more of the ideal client stuff, because we're afraid out of our mind to let go of clients while we're really in search of the better ones. And so that's pervasive, the number one problem I see in businesses.
Do you have a specific example maybe of where you've seen that? Like a specific type of a business that has...
Yeah, I'll just pick on Fully Accountable, right? Why not there? I'll just pick on my own. So I can pick on Total Team as well. So when Fully Accountable launched, right, it was in an environment where it was around smaller operators. And we quickly offered lower end bookkeeping services, and quickly we're taking on a ton of clients. And we realized that our best client was already making $1 million in revenue and needed us to help them fix their leaky bucket and make more margin, keep more profit, not pay as much taxes, but not help newer businesses to have more problems. And we just kind of ignored that. So we were taking on tons and tons of clients. And next thing you knew, we were working with businesses that were misaligned to us. And we were so busy servicing the ones that didn't belong in our register. And we were unfortunately hurting some of the ones that should have been growing up more and putting more of our efforts. So now, one of the first questions we ask is, what stage are you in your business? How many people on the team? What kind of revenue are you doing? We use that as a qualifier or disqualifier. And if it's not the right fit, we'll send them over to a service that caters more to that type of thing. And boy, I'll tell you, it's, as a service company, really hard to turn down revenue. But I'll tell you this, the more you do that, the more it'll grow. And we've grown because we've stayed diligent to that.
Awesome.
And I can give you a bunch of examples. I know of a health company. It's one of our clients, and he's okay if I pick on him. I'm just not going to use their name. Yeah. But they all these products, but they are a women company, and they just came out with a male product that's not doing good at all because they saw a need. And I criticized them and said, what does it have to do with your audience? And then they built out another product for an older woman, and like 25 to 35 is their client base. It's this idea that we want to help everybody. You really can't help everybody. That's a lie. You can help who you're designed to help and help them. But if you kind of stretch out to everybody, then your marketing sucks, your copy sucks, your deliverable of your service, you start looking at too many SKUs, too many service offerings, you become like, when you duplicate something, we get offended now because we use the word retarded in more of a sense of disability, but it means duplication, and it's less better than the original. And that's what happens when we keep doing this in marketing. And so I could talk about this subject all day,
Yeah.
Brandon, but it's
So
the work.
So it's not just it's wasteful marketing or time, energy, financially, because they're going after too many customers instead of their perfect customer.
Well, here's an example. We had over 50 employees. We were big. We had all this stuff. And when we looked and evaluated our best client, our best margin, our best work we do, longest retention, we were like 15 people too many on our own team, eating up so much resources. So when we took that chunk away, took those clients away, we not only kept more revenue, we were a better company. Like, we had less stress on our systems. I mean, I was so passionate about it. I wrote an entire book called False Profits. And the tagline is the top line that pays you. We're so busy as entrepreneurs wanting to grow that top line.
Yeah.
We don't focus on the amount of money we're keeping. We just focus on, all right, I'm bringing in more this week. And by the way, I serve the false god of gross revenue. So I have to be very careful about that issue all the time.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. I can testify to that for sure, just being in a marketing agency. So I want to talk.
Look at all the things we do as entrepreneurs. We always ask ourselves, like, how many leads did we get today, or how much revenue did you bring in? We never ask things like, how much money did you keep this week?
Yeah,
we don't even talk like that because it's that, it's so funny. My daughter the other day, really. Like, my daughter the other day was like giving some kind of talk about something, and the answer was 3. But she's like, well, it's almost 5. And my wife looked at me. She goes, she's learned to be an entrepreneur. We all round up. So we I think it's the nature of mindset of wanting to grow something. But we're going to be very careful how that can lead to for some larger destruction.
Yeah. So I think part of, in our experience, I guess the fear or the challenge with growing and being a true CEO is that piece where, all right, as an entrepreneur, you usually start out alone, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then, maybe you finally get to a place where you can, afford to have one employee, but the thought of growing a team, and for me, I thought it was just math, right? Well, I can have a team of 50 people as long as I sell enough to afford, their salaries and have a margin on top, and we're good. And I quickly realized when we got to about 6 people that it was less, it wasn't the math. It was more about, and I definitely want to talk about the 6 critical parts that are in your book. But one thing I noticed for me was it's the leadership. You literally have to learn how to be a different, like, that's a growth that I'm going through right now. And that's why we actually scaled down a little bit, because it's not just a matter of dollars and cents. So I'm curious, what would you tell? So what is the CEO mindset, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this first off, leaders are developed, they're not born. And so I love that you're on this journey of developing that part of it. You've gained some wisdom. So, I wrote the book and called it The CEO's Mindset, right? And there's like 6 parts to a company. And the reason why I titled it the first chapter was the everything builds off of you, the leader, right? Of a small business. The small business really never grows into an organic entity bigger than where it originally established. And so if a house is not built on a firm foundation, it'll crumble. Yeah. And so the CEO, the leader, right? Without that person leading, the people perish. And so what does that mean? That means that you've got to believe and be building an entire company. Well, how does that work? An entire company is not just lead generation. An entire company is not just, doing a few things for people. It's the leader, right? It's the executive team. It's your sales and marketing. It's your finances. It's your process. It's your systems. It's all of that together as a holistic entity. And when the leader realizes that we started something, I remember when I just started, all of our businesses, I wasn't really thinking about the entire holistic part of the business. I was just thinking about like selling something to somebody because someone wanted to buy it from me and I could sell more of it. And I was just not thinking about all of the responsibilities that came along with running an entire business. Well, as you continue to grow up in your leadership spectrum, you've got to be, unfortunately, this is how it goes. You got to be a little bit less of a provider and a little bit more of a leader. And how do you do that? Well, you let go of the reins a little bit in some spots and you give them to other people and you train them up and you teach them how to grow a garden, not growing it just yourself. And boy, is that hard, especially when you've never done it before. But what do? You go find mentors. You get around guys and gals who have, people who you respect and love the way they do things. And don't do it the way Vinnie Fisher did. Don't go make it up on your own. Go find some people who've been there and who have been mavericks before you, because it's nothing new under the sun in leading. It's just not, leaders aren't popped out of the egg. That's one of the things, like you'll hear people say, he's a natural born leader. Well, that's just a straight up lie. There's no such thing as that. People are developed into leaders over wisdom and time and knowledge and discipleship. It's not, I didn't wake up at 2 years old and know how to lead people. As a matter of fact, I was a train wreck in my 20s. I wasn't really ready to lead other people. I might have had passion and some charisma and some other things, but man, my stopping, investing in character and integrity and, loose lips and being careful that my yeses were yeses and my no's were no's. Like, man, I was about as disqualified as a leader as they get. And over time and with purposeful care, it's developed. I love that you're on that journey now. And I think for me, being a parent helped a lot with that, because it gave me a bigger vision for something more of. But for other people, that kicks on different ways. I don't think you have to have a kid to be a good leader. I just think it helped me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, lots of growth in the last 4 years, just being a parent, for sure. Especially two at the same time. It's like chasing two rabbits.
I remember one day when I was sitting in my offices, I had 500 people on our payroll, and I had made a decision before that I was going to be able to not get disconnected from our people. So I made a habit of walking around and almost spot checking hello to people, and not manipulation, but trying to remember things about people, not necessarily just their name, like that their daughter was in a ballet class or whatever. And I remember one day bringing my third born with us around. And he was just in the office one day and he's like, so wait a minute, Dad, let me get this straight. You walk around and talk to people all day and they pay you for that? And I'm like, yep, that's how I get paid. Daddy gets paid to talk to people.
That's great.
And I thought about that. That he saw that I was investing in our people. And I don't care the size of your organization, 1, 6, or 60. If you as the leader aren't giving a few minutes back to your people, then you lost sight of what you're really doing.
That's good. Do you so what are the other critical parts of a company? Obviously the CEO mindset, but what are those? Can you have?
So go ahead. If you're going to ask questions, I can talk right through it, but I'd love to hear what that question was going to be. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, can you be a CEO without these other 5 parts? I mean, you can't be the CEO of what?
I don't think so. Right. So I think a couple things. I don't think you can be a CEO of yourself.
Right.
Right. So number 2 in the whole thing is people, right? A team. Like if you're leading yourself, then you're just a solopreneur with a job. I'm not knocking that. By the way, there's 2.5 million of them, right? We've reinvented working from home, right? Boy, I was a little ahead of my curve with my work at home company. Too bad I didn't wait till a little later on that. But that's a wonderful, admirable thing that web designers and all these consultants are doing from home. Great stuff. But you're not really a CEO. What do you do? Like talk to yourself? So you got to have people. There's got to be a team, at least bigger than just you. So it's you and somebody else. That starts the whole thing of why a CEO would even exist in the first place. A lot of times you self-appoint that title because it sounds really cool,
right,
more than you are it. And so that's the first core part of it. The third part of it starts to become the finances, right? Like if you have your mindset, people, and then you have the bucket. Now there might be a lot of holes in that bucket, but it's your finances. You're only doing this to make some money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Otherwise, you'd be philanthropic and you'd go live somewhere and do everything for free. So if you're in a for-profit business, well, then I would think the axiom would be it's going to have a profit. And so, or don't do it. And so I saw a great talk by the founder of LegalZoom. He's like, someone asked him, should you focus on growth or profit? And his answer was great. His answer was, every company who isn't funded with an unlimited set of capital should only focus on profit. If you don't have funding from the outside with an unlimited source of capital, you can't focus on growth. Only they can. Everyone else is required to focus on profit. I was like, drop the mic. What a great idea. So then the fourth one. So here's something about me, right? It's all about marketing. I believe in two things in a company. I believe in people and marketing, and everything else is an expense. It's just how it goes. It's how I believe it. It's what so if you don't have marketing feeding your sales machine, then you're going to have a real problem having consistent, predictable revenue. And as a matter of fact, that's a great book. I don't have it on my desk. I wish I did. It's a book called Predictable Revenue. It talks about how to create a prospecting machine of marketing that feeds your sales team. And that is the next component. Then the fifth component is this idea that you got to have structure. You got to build process. You don't have to just have it. You got to build it. A motto I say to not only us all the time, but to everyone in our system, our clients, it's okay to walk down a dirt road once. You got to have an attitude of paving behind you, right? So everything we've built at Total Team is all about development so that the team member takes accountability of their role and they're building process behind them. It's not for outsiders and it's not for the owner to build. It's for that person inside that role to build. And so if the CEO can come alongside a team member and help them develop an attitude of development of their own role, then the company has structure and system all around it. And so
how do you do that? What are some initial tips? Because we've put in, standard operating procedures, written the company handbook, tried to create process, and I've gotten either two things have happened. One, we create process and then either aren't in the habit or it's almost immediately been outdated, or we get pushback like, well, this by documenting this, I'm potentially firing myself, right? Like I'm replaceable, right?
So, there's really two kinds of checklists, right? There's a to-do list and a make sure I did it list, right? It's kind of a that got done list. And the problem is almost everybody does to-do lists. Mm-hmm. And almost nobody does make sure I did lists. And if you look at every mistake that happens in a company, it's always, I forgot to put that code on the page. Oops, I forgot to do that. The great book that everyone should read is like this idea of, it's kind of a motto for us around checklist manifesto. We care more about make sure lists or make sure they got done lists more than we care about to-do lists. And so a great hack for everybody, because I think every show should have a hack. You should have every team member right now write the owner or the operator a love letter. And here's the love letter. Dear Brandon, here's what I do all day long. I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And it's a love letter describing what they do at work. And when that love letter is done, it comes back to you. And you, at every step along the way, you circle. I just did one. It's funny. I got one right here in front of me for a new person. So I don't even get away from this, right? And so I had them write me a love letter, and I numbered each thing they did as a different activity. My main role is a project manager at Total Team. My service is where I assign VA projects to complete a higher level service for the development and training completing for. So now I have 5 things I just said to you that require process. So when I'm done, we give them a full list of that love letter back to them. Here are the 17 things you just said you do in your job. Okay, cool. Now we need you to go create make sure lists of one at a time of those 17 things. Now, what has been proven by Dr. Garandi, I think is his last name, that guy who wrote that book, Checklist Manifesto, which is a quality read for any operator, is that, remember, these are pilots. These are pretty intelligent people, right? They're not, they're not line prep cooks. Not they're not prep cooks or anything. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think when you think of a pilot, you're thinking of someone pretty accomplished. Well, they moved everything to a manifesto, so you didn't have to remember. Imagine this scenario. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we're at 35,000 feet, and I forgot to check the fuel tanks. We're going to have to make an emergency landing, and we'll get back to you in a minute. Have a great day. You'd go, what the heck are you talking about?
Right.
So they have make sure we don't forget lists. And those, they go through them. So what was proven by a Gallup study of over 40,000 team members is that if we make process and structure around your role and give you make sure lists that you check off, that there's an 80%, I think like an 82% greater likelihood that you're going to be happier in your job if you follow that structure than if you're continually having to use your short-term memory to have to remember things that almost become perfunctory in nature. And so when you hear someone say, well, you're going to move me out of a job, no, they don't get it. You're going to free up the ability for your brain to focus on higher, bigger level things because we move this into a list of make sure and not into a memory category of things that end up hurting companies. And when you look at real brands, you look at really quality places like good hotels that you love to stay at, you see the clipboard sitting right on the cleaners thing. She goes through and she's remembering all the stuff she has to do inside your hotel room. How would you love it if you went home back to your hotel room tonight, if you're out on the road, and like the soap is not in the exact spot you're expecting it to be? You'd be like, what the heck? This place sucks. I'm not staying here ever again. And it's just the soap, or they forgot to put the towels back, or they didn't make your bed. Well, all those things are a make sure it got done list. It's not a to-do list.
Yeah.
It's make sure the consistency in delivery leads into the sixth thing that's critical for companies. It's product and services, right? You got to have a good product and service. Now, I believe in progress over perfection because I don't believe the companies with the best products win. I believe the companies with marketing win. But don't forget, you got to keep delivering what you've promised. And so to me, that's a critical piece to this. But brands that deliver consistency, that adopt this attitude where they're helping people win at their role are the ones who get it. And that's this whole idea. So I would encourage the love letter. You'll be shocked how that, and you don't have to do it all in one day. Get the list. And then, it would be a win if one of those a week were done. We kind of like to move someone along in a weekly process, so we'll have, maybe more of those done if they're not so many. But if you were to look inside of our total team solution, we have a whole role development piece to each of our team members where you literally can go pick up your guide for the thing you're doing. You don't have to remember how you keep forgetting to add Google Analytics to your site every time. You just check off the list. Okay, before I deliver this to the client, is that done? For us, it's make sure anti-bullying policies in the handbook because that's this new thing. Like, don't forget that because if we're just going to have to go back and do it again later. And so it's that kind of stuff, right? And so to me, role development process is not compliance stuff unless you're involved in team. But for you, it's more like, how do I deliver websites to clients and profitable campaigns and make sure the audience, think of all the things that break all the time.
Oh, so many.
That's the stuff people need to be making their lists about their job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of team, do you have any hiring tips? I think I saw a hiring guide actually on totalteam.com. Right?
Yeah. So what we'll do for your people, if they want, we'll have / total team. We'll give we'll share the hiring guide for every one of your audience who wants it, and we'll give them an opt-in to that. Where we just want their email so we can spam them. But other than that, we'll give them a great. But here's the reality: people can hire, they can do it. They just don't have the time. They don't have the resources. So we're trying to give you the resources and encourage you to take the time because it doesn't solve all your problems. But boy, if you can be consistent and really focus on the core issues, you can start to minimize the ones you do over and over.
Yeah, I went through that. It's great. Simple, but just great. One of those things where you're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think that should be one of the things that we asked. We should give them a small project to, the cut and paste email templates, great stuff. Yep. I want to ask you though, even when you do all the things right and you get the, you get a good qualified person on the team with skills. Is there what is your thought on culture being the cult leader that we talked about before? So, culture and attitude over, they're really good, because we've had people that have been really, really good at their job, very, very skilled, but either they reach a certain amount of time, or maybe the leadership isn't doing what it's supposed to. I'm not sure what it is, but they get to a place where they just, it's no longer a fit, or they phase out, or they're not passionate about the work anymore. How do you hire people that with that right attitude, and how do you create the culture?
Let me jump in and take the wheel, and then I get where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So let me do 2 things. One is a fact that literally expertise can be gathered very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what I mean by that is the average person, if I took everything off your plate and had you focus on one item for 90 days, you are more immensely qualified than almost everyone else at whatever it is you just did. So expertise can be gained very quickly. I always say, I didn't know how to be a lawyer until I was a lawyer. But once I gained the expertise of it, I can put that into practice. So many people hire for expertise, and it's something you can gain pretty quickly. And it is the last thing we should be hiring for. One, I believe in a farm system over free agency, but I want to forget that for a second, because that takes time and development. I want everyone to remember one thing. You gotta hire for the culture of who you are. A small business, I write about this in the people section of this book. And again, if they want it, any of your people want it, I'll give you the copy free. You just send me, a note that you want me to send you a copy, and it's yours. But I talk about this idea of the heartbeat of your company. And it's the values that are built within inside of me. I spit them off in moments. And how do you know what those are? It's the things that matter the most to you. Those are the things that make up who you are. Like, so for me, things that matter are like, I'll give you ones. Like, I can't stand gossip. And one of the reasons is some bad stuff in my history. Regardless of how we got there, it is a core killer for me. Mm-hmm. If you're someone who just has to talk about other people and that's just your thing, you're going to hate working with me. You should never come here. Don't even apply, because you will hate it. And I will root that out during our hiring process. And my point is, you got to hire for culture far more than expertise. And the values of you, the person who built this whole thing, really sets the tone. Just don't download Apple's values and make them yours. I don't care about chair time. I don't care about when you're in the office. I care about you getting done what you promised to get done. Make your yeses, yeses, and your no's, no's. I care about when you said you're going to get something done and that's your commitment. Well, gosh darn it, I don't want to ever question you're going to get it done. How did I come up with this list? Because it's my list. So who do I give the biggest benefit of the doubt to? Me. And so when people look and act more like me in my environment, they're going to get benefit of the doubt. Now, the biggest mistake that happens in community is everyone's like, well, I want them to be exactly like me. No, I don't need anyone else in this company exactly like me. Right. And that means I don't need another hippie. I don't need another free-thinking, crazy marketing nut job. I've got more vision than anyone. We have enough for a blind village. I need process and implementation and execution. But I want it through the values that matter to me. There's a reason why Rachel, Chris, and I click at such a high level. It's because that happens. Now, I want to encourage you. Get that in place. Hire that way, and you will see a change. It's not going to be perfect. It's like filtering out your email list. Data's going to slip through. There's going to be honeypots in there, but you got to get rid of them fast. We just got rid of an executive. Great guy, hard worker. Lots of friction with another executive. And his hardworking, great stuff for clients did not anywhere near win because of the friction and stuff that was going on. He had to go. And it immediately lifted back up as a result of dealing with that issue. And, you don't want to see that happen, but we care about culture 10x more than we ever care about expertise. And because of that, we give the room for people to grow into experts. So it is so backwards how people are hiring for talent. Don't do it, man. Unless talent is culture, then do it all day long.
Yeah, right. So you mentioned something, chair time, right? You don't care about chair time, the actual time in the office. And one thing that we've struggled with culture is the fact that we're primarily remote. This year, we're actually finally looking at office space again, because we know that we see the benefit of, just having that one place where all, come together. And if we're going to build something, I feel like you almost have to double down on the amount of time you spend together. So
we have both.
Is it possible to create that? It's obviously possible to create that virtually, but do you have any advice for, is it more difficult to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's why? Because you're not, we still are, why is video better than just talking on the phone? Because we can look at each other. We can talk to each other. Right? So, of course, being together is always going to be better. But in this world of technology, the access to talent and resources all around the world, you can make both work. In both of our companies, at Fully Accountable and Total Team, we have both. We tend to like our project managers and our executives here on our home soil. But our key employees beyond that can be other places. I'm going to get in trouble for the word employee. We believe in team members. And so I'm going to have to add something to the lunch bucket for that. Nice job. And so so both can happen. And I would tell you, one of the reasons people want to go to an office isn't always just collaboration with people. They're dealing with some value issues. So one of our value issues is integrity, your character. So if you say that you're going to spend 6 hours getting something done, and I'm starting to question whether you're actually telling me the truth, we got a bigger problem. It's not really you're in the office or you're not in the office. I made the wrong hire. I have an integrity problem. If you're a finger pointer, it doesn't matter if you're in the office or not. Right. You're always blaming someone else for something being done. Well, that person should never apply to be in my system, or come use Total Team to get into one of our client companies, because you're never going to make it through the filter if you're a finger pointer. But my point is, I think we go back to offices because we want to start managing people, and there's really a breakdown on culture. Culture can exist in and outside, and it has to, because the world is both. Now, I think it's better if it's inside, but it brings on other issues, more costs, more labor-intensive stuff, a need to have someone manage that. So you got to accept the pros and cons that go along with that. But, I think it's hard to argue. It's kind of like arguing homeschooling. One-on-one education is going to be better than public education. But there's other benefits and burdens that go along with it, right?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people doing more like the Zoom videos. Zoom's one of the first platforms that let you have, I think you have up to 100 people on screen at one time. We run
company meetings this way. So every Monday afternoon, whether you're in the building or out of the building, you're either in our large conference room, or you're one of our external people we call homies. You're one of our homies, and you're logging into our Zoom, participating in the company meeting.
Yeah.
And we're not okay with you not having a camera. We got to be able to see you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I don't care if you have a third nipple that day. We got to be able to see each other. It's critical to interaction. So we try to do all of our engagements this way, everything, because I feel like when I connect with a friend or a client or a colleague, that there's more intimacy. This gets closer to in person when you can do this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Awesome. I want to switch gears a little bit. All amazing stuff. I'm going to have 2 sheets of paper for the show notes on this episode. But I want to switch gears a little bit, especially after going to the Total CEO Mastermind. I know you shared a lot there, stuff that has worked for you. You shared a lot of the things that, the failures and the lessons learned there. I'd like to know I'd like you to share with our audience. I'm pretty sure I already know, but what is your definition of total CEO, a total CEO? What does that mean to you?
Well, so, it's really someone who's focused on all 6 parts of the business, who's actually focused on a holistic attitude of the company. When you say things like, I don't really focus on hiring, or I don't really know the numbers of my business, or, I'm not really involved in product, then what you're saying is you're not really involved in your company. What I'm not saying is you need to do every part of that. So don't control freaks out there say, Vinny said I got to do everything. No, my grandpa used to say something really cool. Either control the checkbook or you control the person who controls the checkbook, right? And so a CEO has to have that latter attitude, right? You're developing operators. For me, I'm not a very good operator. So we have a good operator on our team too, actually. I'm an excellent marketer. I love to generate leads. I can sell ice cream to Eskimos. I love to do that kind of stuff. And so we get me closer to that. But I'm always involved in being the chief evangelist to our people. I'm not far away from hiring. I look at the management reports of our money in the company. I am always involved in the service delivery. I'm touching each part of our business. And if I don't, I have to stand before my people and with great humility admit that I'm missing parts of being the total CEO for our team.
Got it.
We just call me the cult leader, but it's the same thing. It's just a term that gets me a lot of trouble at church, but it means the same thing. So, yeah.
So before we go, we always like to end our episodes with switching gears to something more on the marriage side of things, marriage, family. Don't always like to keep it all just business. So what is it, or what have you learned from your family life that you've applied to business, and what is that kind of in the same vein of that is, do you believe in that work-life balance?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that second one because that's a blast. There's another thing about being a total CEO. You can't be just a leader in the office and not the leader at home. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be a legit CEO, there's no, I don't get it. And it's early on in my career, I did this, I'm guilty of it. I'd go crush it at work and give no energy back at home. And there was years of our marriage where I was Debbie's fake best friend. I was living on fumes. I wasn't investing in our marriage or our children. And I realized to be the true CEO, that exists at home and at work. Mm. And one of my favorite mentors is Jesus. And he didn't believe in work-life balance. He believed in priority and perspective. You put the time and energy in the things you need to do. There's seasons in my life where my wife needs more time. There's seasons in my life where I need to really put a little more energy into the business. I got to pay attention to where I need to put more energy. We just, dealt with an executive on our team that had to be dismissed, as I talked about. Well, that required a bunch of energy, and I missed the family event for it. But it was a perspective. It was a priority that's where I was needed. And as a total CEO, you think that way. You should. And so there are times where I want to work a little more at work, and I hit a honey pot or a deep well on generating leads, and I'm like, nope, I need to pack it up and go to Vinny's soccer game, which is my little Vin, not me, and go see his game and be fun with that. And so I don't believe in balance. I don't think there's like this even Steven thing. I think you have to look at priorities in your life and put a proper perspective on it. Like I fight real hard to have family dinner at home. I fight real hard to not have more than 2 nights away from the Fisher six-pack, because to me, you start to drift and lose real sense of true purpose when you focus on this like balance thing. I just don't think it exists.
Awesome. Great answer. Vinny, how can people reach you? You've got a few businesses, obviously a few projects, but how can people reach you if they want to learn more about either getting a free copy of the book or learning more about the services that you offer with Total Team? And
so you can through multiple places. Thanks, Brendan. You can go right to my page, vinnyfisher.com. You can find me there. That contact goes into my email. It's to connect to me. I'm very active in all the social media spots. You can go right to our brand, totalteam.com, and that connects right to our people. I'm very accessible. In both our contact page at fullyaccountable.com, I'm more in the operation of Total Team, but I'm involved in both of them. I think I'm more involved in Total Team because I'm just more passionate about it. But and I'm just all over people. But that's said in a very HR bad way, but I think you know what I meant there.
Yeah.
But I'm very accessible. And you can catch me on social media, both in Facebook and LinkedIn. And I will always make time to connect with people because it's the thing I think is the most important.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time you spent with us this week. Vinny, you've been like a mentor to me, obviously a great friend. I've appreciated all that we continue to learn from you. and all of the help that you've been with Fully Accountable in some of the client work that we shared together. Truly a pleasure, and appreciate you. And listen, guys, make sure to head over to iTunes, give us a review, share this episode with other CEOs that you know who can benefit from this. And remember, everybody wants a great business. Everybody wants maybe the title of a CEO. Everybody wants to be a good father, a good family man. But it doesn't just happen. It requires work. It requires intention. And we're putting in that work. Vinny's put some great businesses in place to help with that work. So put in the work, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Middleton Methods podcast. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Brandon.